Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Quiet Storm Collective, where real stories meet faith, healing, and purpose. I'm your host, Latoya Murchison, and this is a space that quiet storm within us rises with purpose. Today's episode is powerful and necessary as we welcome Dr. Alicia Diggs, a leader whose voice is shaping community, engagement, equality, and healing in the HIV advocacy spaces and beyond. Welcome, Alicia. How are you?
I am fabulous. Thank you so much for having me today.
You're very welcome. When you hear the phrase "the quiet storm," what does that stir up for you, personally and professionally?
So, personally, first, because I'm silly and I'm from Philly, the Quiet Storm first reminds me of WDAS, 11 o'clock, I think it was. The Quiet Storm would come on the radio. That was all the sexy slow jams. Um, but outside of that, I also, when I hear like the Quiet Storm, it reminds me of those days when I wasn't, I'll just say, I didn't have a good grasp on how I handled things that made me upset. So, I would kind of boil and hold things in. And like they say, the quiet before the storm, like, yeah. But as I grew and matured, um, things changed. So, personally, now when I think about the term quiet storm, it reminds me that I really don't have to be loud to be powerful. I've weathered so many storms and that tried to break me, and yet I am still here. I'm still standing. I'm still loving. I'm still leading. And, my strength is really my survival. But being a person who is soft and tender at heart, I just completely still refuse to like disappear in all the ruckus and things that go on. So, the term quiet storm just brings to mind peace and power at the same time, but also stillness and movement.
That's powerful. You live openly and unapologetically as a Black woman with HIV. What did it take for you to achieve that peace, that pace of confidence and truth? And what does that freedom mean to you today?
So, what did it take? It took God for
Mm,
real. It really, really took God because outside of having a spiritual relationship, I could not have done it on my own. In my own strength, I would either be deceased or I would be in prison. So, just being real during the times of when the storm was really, really hitting me, God kept saying, "Wait, I got your back. Wait, I got your back." And when you think about somebody having your back, somebody that you're close to, that you believe when they tell you that they're going to do something, they're going to do it. And that's how it is with my relationship with God. So even though that voice was very still, it was very small, I still held on to that. And, as I grew through the storms I was going through and started to lean on people that I entrusted, because eventually I had to tell people about my status. I mean, I didn't have to. I could have stayed in silence, but it wasn't benefiting me any. I was just angry and sad and all the negative words. I was it. But once I confided in people that I trusted, and I did confide in people, and they let me down and they hurt me. But there were others who were there to be the wind beneath my wings. They were the ones who, who were physically there for me. So, like, God is there spiritually. The God that I serve is there spiritually. And when I am still enough to listen and hear, then I can hear God. But there are times that really I'm ready to be a hurricane or a tornado, or I'm just like nothing but a rainstorm because I'm crying or I'm just clouded. But there are people who are close to me who can really remind me, like, it's okay. Remember that I got your back. I got your back. And, knowing that gave me, the freedom that I needed to be who I am today, to be able to soar like the eagle God created me to be.
Amen.
Yes.
In your role at the UNC CFAR, you champion the meaningful involvement of people with lived experience. Why is this principle so critical, and what does it look like when it's done correctly?
So, for those who don't know, the CFAR, the UNC, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill Center for AIDS Research. There are several Center for AIDS researchers throughout the United States. There's about 19, if I'm correct. But those who are listening and know better will get the correct number. But I do believe it's 19 of us. Um, but for me, here in North Carolina, my position is community engagement. Excuse me. So, what I do in community engagement is I build that bridge between community and research. I work with researchers. While I'm not an epidemiology researcher, I am a researcher for community, meaning that I work on the community side. So, not only do I participate in research studies, but I am a researcher as well. But again, when it comes to like the community engagement and meaningful involvement, what I am doing is building relationships with community. And when I say community, that is people living with and impacted by HIV. That is also stakeholders like organizations that are providing services for people living with and impacted by HIV, health departments, it could be universities, all of the other people who are not within academia and in the academia part of the Center for AIDS Research and the science. So I'm building those relationships again to build a bridge because there's always been a separation when it comes to research because of past traumas, you name it, it's been there. And with people not having trust in science or scientists, it's important to make sure that that bridge is connected and people feel like they are being heard. People feel like they have buy-in when it comes to making decisions when we talk about science and research. But then also on the academia and science side, to make sure that they understand these traumas are real. And while they may have happened years and years ago, they still impact particularly black and brown communities. So, I hear people say, well, that was then, just kind of get over it. I almost use that not quiet storm language. You can't tell people to get over historical trauma. While for me personally, I may not have experienced those traumas from, way back when. I'm a 70s baby, so 60s, 50s, 40s below, but my ancestors did. My parents did, my aunts and uncles, grandparents. So, those things still impact us. So, all that to say, it's important to have a relationship on both sides. And then when you're talking about bringing in community people who are impacted or living with HIV, you have to make sure that they have space, they have say so, that they are not they, that we are respected and we have a voice, and we're team members in this. You can't do your science without us, and we can't get what we need in regards to advancing science without us all coming together. And I do understand that there are a lot of people who don't agree with research and things that are done scientifically, but I'm going to just be real. For me, if it wasn't for the science and if it wasn't for the bodies who participated, I would not be able to have one pill a day that keeps me healthy, that keeps me undetectable, not able to transmit HIV to my sexual partners because the virus is suppressed due to the medication. So, I know people who have had 30 and 40 pills a day. I can't wrap my head around that. So being able to now just take one pill, that's a part of science. But that's also a part of my siblings in the movement from past days who participated, who had voice, and who were protected to be able to make this happen.
Definitely. We have a question from the listeners.
Mhm.
Does your organization reach out to homeless teens that may or may not be positive?
So the CFAR is not really an organization. It's not like an aid service organization. It's a university of researchers who do research on different things, on infectious disease, not just HIV, but other things. On the HIV arena, there's really just me. So in community engagement, when it comes to the CFAR, the Center for AIDS Research, where I am employed, I am the only one in that particular position. So I am that voice to connect with the community. So to really answer your question, what I do is I have relationships with other organizations who provide those services. So I have those relationships, and not I, the CFAR has those relationships with the organizations. So if someone is, maybe interested in housing or, you know, um, anything like that, then I check my quote unquote Rolodex and I connect with that particular organization who is able to connect said community person or groups with housing, with food, or with any other thing that they're searching for.
You've sat at the table many with many people that let me start again. You have sat at many tables that people wish they had access to,
Mhm.
from national advisory councils to research boards.
Mhm.
How do you carry the responsibility of representing the community voices in those spaces?
That's a heavy lift.
Mm.
It's a heavy lift. Um, it becomes easier because you're not by yourself. But when I think about the first time my name was given to be a part of like the Presidential Advisory Council on HIV, which has been disbanded, but we won't talk about that here in this space right now. Um, but when that invitation came to me, my mind was blown because it's like I know I wasn't the only one that was invited, but at the time I was the representative for North Carolina. And I'm like, that's a lot of weight on my shoulders to show up. And then I'm going to be real transparent. I had imposter syndrome,
Mhm.
which meant that, yeah, I knew I was smart and I knew some things, but I also didn't think I was enough to be at a table like that. I just didn't realize that I had what it took to be in that space. So I was very nervous. And then I'm just like, if I don't do this thing right, if I don't say the right thing and represent people living with HIV, Black women living with HIV, or just Black women themselves, or just, minorities. I'm like, if I don't do this right, then I'm going to let people down. But to be honest with you, when I got in that space, it wasn't what I thought. It wasn't this keep your back up straight and make sure that you articulate your words. It wasn't like that. It was a free space of very knowledgeable people, some of lived experience, some not of lived experience, but those who are passionate about the work, passionate about the community, passionate about making sure that we rid the stigma when it comes to HIV. So I found family. I found more family when I got in those spaces. Um, Being in the space to represent, and I'm just talking about one community right now. So I have been in spaces where I've represented all communities, and then I've been where I've represented just Black women. So, I would definitely let them know I can't speak for all communities. That's not my job. All I can do is speak from my experience and also some of the things that I've gotten from my siblings. And when I say siblings, I'm not talking about my siblings that my mother gave birth to or my father helped make. I'm talking about my siblings in the HIV movement, those who are leaders in the movement, those who are living with and impacted by, but mainly those who are living with. I can't speak for everyone's experience, but I tried to do my very best, and I tried to make sure that I represented in a way that brought value to the space and made my family proud.
Awesome. We have another question from a listener. What was it like upon your first receiving a HIV diagnosis?
Oh my gosh, it was so debilitating because y'all, when I went and got test results, that is not what I went to the doctors for that day. So, just really quickly, I was one of those people when it became available for us to get STD and SDI tests. I got everything. I was sexually active early in my life. So, I wanted to make sure that I was always safe, that I, did not contract anything. And I won't use that old stigmatizing language we used to use back in the day, but I will just say that I wanted to make sure that I didn't contract anything, that I was safe and I can keep other people safe. So, in doing that on a regular basis, not all the time I went back for test results because it was the same, it was always negative. So, back then for me in the 90s, in the I'll say the late 90s, early 2000s, when I go to the health department, if I got a green card in the mail or a blue card, it was good. But I never got any other color. The other colors, which could have been pink or red, that meant something. So, I never got anything like that. But when I got sick from a cold, I caught a cold, had the flu, lost some weight, lymph nodes were swollen, and me being very inquisitive, I'd be like, I'm nosy, but I'm inquisitive and I like to research stuff. And I'm like, wait, this don't feel right. The doc said it's just the flu and it's going to go away, but I don't feel right. When you're in tune with your body, you recognize something that's not right. And then also historical trauma, we don't get heard as women, and especially as women of color. So when I'm telling you something's wrong, you're rejecting me, telling me, oh, it's in your mind, it's just a cold, Miss Diggs, it's going to be fine. And my body is like, hey, baby, something's going on. So doing my research, I assumed I had cancer. So I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical physician. So I was like, okay, let me reach out to my doc. Hey, would like to get a biopsy to find out what's going on. Can we get that set up? But what happened was my previous HIV test, STI testing, I never got the test results again because they were always negative. They already had test results and they thought I was there for the test results. And that's how I found out I was positive. I had no idea. That was not what my doctor's appointment was that day. So, as things moved on, how did I feel? I was depressed. I was sad. I was it was December. So I was 2 months from my wedding date. So I was about to get married, y'all. Had a dress in the closet, invitations was out, everything was set. We were waiting for the date. And I went to the doctors for what I thought was going to be a referral. And I got these test results I wasn't expecting. So I was crushed. I didn't want to get married. I didn't know if maybe this is something that I had contracted years ago before, or if I, passed it to somebody. I didn't know what was going on, but I was so sad. I was just so depressed. I was scared. I felt dirty. I felt yucky. I felt all of those negative things. Um, and then I got healed. And when I say healed, because I know people like, what? She got healed from HIV? I got HIV right now, there's no cure. But there's medication so that it can suppress the virus. But when I say I got healed spiritually because I needed that because I was broken. I wasn't suicidal because I had passed that phase in my life. Years ago, I was suicidal before HIV. But getting those test results, I was just like, what's going to happen with my life? How long am I going to live? My children were really little at the time. And am I going to see them grow up? Am I ever going to be a grandmother? Like, what is my life going to be like? Is my immune system well enough to be able to fight this virus off in a way that I can live long? So I had a lot of questions, but at the same time, I felt like it was plastered on my forehead, on my face, and every room that I went in, it said HIV. And I thought when people looked my way, they knew when they were talking about me. And these people didn't even know who I was. It was my own internalized stigma.
How does self care show up for you when things become overwhelming?
First of all, where self care shows up for me, first in music. Music is my go to. I come from a family of musicians and singers, and I've always been around music. I am that, like we say, quiet storm. I'm that quiet singer. You will have to catch me off guard. No, I'm not going to spit a tune. I am a mimic singer. Sometimes if I don't hear the tune, it's going to sound like I don't hear the tune. I'm going to sound like an old llama. But but self-care does show up for me with music because there was a time where, because I've always been this really nice person. People have known me for years, like when I was younger. I've always been kind. But I've been that person who was the mat. So people will walk all over me and I would internalize my feelings. And then you can push, but only so much down. Just like with a balloon, you can put so much air or water in it before it busts. And that would be me. I would just take and take and take, and then boom. So as I grew up, I had to find a way to be able to manage my feelings, to be able to get my voice out. So once I learned how to do that, I also don't like biting my tongue. But it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So I had to find a way to like really channel those things that were impacted my mental and my tongue. So again, it started with music. Sometimes if it's like I don't want to hear music, and even though I said I had a spiritual relationship, it don't always start with prayer. That's the number one thing that does help. But sometimes it does not always start that way. And because I am a person that thrives off of togetherness and support from people, sometimes I might go crying to my friends. It might be a vent session, it might be a cuss session, it might be a cry session. And once I get through the different phases of that, then I'm able to really find that peace. Now, depending on the situation, sometimes I immediately get that peace and I'm like, it's going to be fine. Positive outlook. It's roses and butterflies, and yay, this storm is not going to always be there. But sometimes when you're doing that and you're not feeling the feelings, that's when that balloon gets full and that thing busts. So there are times that I have done that. So even in going to music first, fussing first, taking it all in, I try to find an even median. And what I do now is I take a breath first. Sometimes you really just have to stop and you have to breathe. And for me, I do that. I'm learning now to put things to the side. So if it's meetings I have to be in, places I have to be, webinars I have to be on, I can't do it. I need to take a quick breath before, because otherwise, I'm not going to come as Alicia. I'm going to come as Philly. And Philly is not nice. And I don't want her around. So then that comes with being moody and snappy, and everything gets on your nerves. The wind blowing the wrong way, and you want to fuss and cuss somebody out, and you don't like the way they look, so you just want to smack them. And it's like, let me take a breath, get it together before I put myself in those spaces.
I think we all have those moments, a time or two.
Yes.
Let's switch over for just a little bit. Let's talk about your book, Standing on Your Healing from Tainted to Chosen.
Hmm.
What does standing on your healing look like in real life, not just in theory?
I had to do a little dance. Yeah, I'm silly because I can. I
Mm.
can be silly because I wasn't always this way. I was angry and broken and sad. And today I feel good. And it's my birthday
Yes,
today.
happy birthday.
My birthday. So I try to be happy on my birthday. So what does standing on my healing? What was that? So standing on my healing came from a minister so during my first diagnosis, I had some church hurt and I had some major rejection from who I thought was my church family. One of the ministers said to me, Alicia, if you don't believe and remember nothing else, remember Isaiah 53 and 5. He was wounded for my transgressions, he was bruised for my iniquities. By his stripes, I am healed. So I was like, I'm healed, I'm healed, I'm healed. She said, stand on your healing. You're going to be okay. And she encouraged me. And I'm about to get emotional because I see her face and she's no longer with us. And she was a minister that I ain't really get along with. because she was kind of strong, and she just got on my nerves a little bit, but she was the one who helped me stand
Mhm.
on my healing with just that word. So my favorite scripture, at least one of them, is Isaiah 53:5. And I know I didn't say the whole thing, but we ain't at church right now, just broken in half. But the standing on my healing was like, okay, science says that HIV will never leave my body, but God says that I am healed. God told me numerous times in different parts of the scriptures that I believe in, I am healed. So when I started writing this book, I was like, standing on my healing. That's what it's going to be called. Um, and I did skip a part because before I made the decision to do that, back in the day, those who used to go to like health departments, you would see pamphlets sitting on the tables and stuff, and there'll be little stories about people's diagnosis and stuff. Well, I thought they were made up stories, y'all. They were real stories. I
Mhm.
had a pamphlet in the health department, doctor's offices, and it was called Standing on My Healing. And it was about my story of being diagnosed with HIV.
Wow.
So when I really answered the call, because I didn't out the blue, I want to write a book. No, somebody was like, you need to write. And God said, tell your story. So when I did that, I came up with that because I was like, the standing on my healing came from Diane Robinson. And I don't know if she's on and maybe she'll see this later. Diane Robinson is a mentor to me and she helped me in my start in this movement. So standing on my healing is from me doing just that. But I always felt dirty, tainted, nasty. And I was on a bus one day writing, and God said, you are chosen, you are not tainted. So that's what the second part, standing on my healing from tainted to chosen. Long answer, but yeah.
But with a much needed answer. Would you like to share a passage from your autobiography, and where can people purchase it?
So you can purchase it online at Amazon.com. Just look up Alicia Diggs. You can put in standing on my healing, it'll come up that way, or just with my name. If you are like close to me, local, I do have books on hand. Um, and here's what it looks like, standing on my healing from tainted to chosen. I originally wrote this book by hand, and that was my healing process. God told me to write it. I wrote by water. Water is cleansing for me. So I couldn't sit in the house. I had to go by a body of water, be it the ocean, a lake, a fountain. And I wrote. And then once it was all complete, I transcribed it. So I'm just going to flip through. It's a quick read, and it's just me telling my business from the age of 3 up until I think I was 43, maybe when I stopped writing, when I finished, maybe I don't remember. But yeah. So I'm gonna just flip and start reading a quick excerpt without, dang, it had to be this part. So it's okay. I didn't want to just pick because as a author, when you just sometimes I can't speak for other authors, but when you just kind of flip through and let me, oh, this one, that one, I'm doing too much. So I open a page, it's page 61, and I start here at the top. I told him that it was too late in the morning to go and we should go next weekend, like 7 a.m. when it was not so crowded. Now, since I had known this man, he never cursed at me or raised his voice. So what happened next shocked me. He got in my face and said, "Itch, I'll kill you if you leave. You're not going nowhere." I guess I should have been afraid, especially since he had guns all over the house, like in the drawers, under the bed, and even under the pillow. Me afraid? Not cocky Lee. I told him I wish he would even think about it because by the time he grabbed one of those guns, I would have already blown his head off. I pushed past him and grabbed the phone to call my mom. While I was doing that, he takes the keys out of the deadbolt of the front door, which meant I was locked in. I called my mom, yelling in the phone for her to come and get me, while he was yelling in the background saying that I'm not going anywhere. For over 10 years, I had been a witness to domestic violence. So there is no way this cycle will repeat with me. It had to stop somewhere. And this day, I was determined that it would stop with me. Seeing some of the things I saw as a child helped me to not take death threats lightly. I did not doubt for a moment that he was serious, but for some reason I was not afraid. It appeared to be forever before my mother showed up. So during the wait, I packed me and my daughter's clothes. Even when my mom banged on the door, this nut wouldn't let me leave. After about 5 minutes and a few threats from my mom and her man, this guy opens the door just enough to push me out. Then he threw my things out after me.
Wow.
Y'all, that part, I wasn't even living with HIV. That was so. This book is not about HIV. HIV is not my life. It's just something that happened to me. I'm more than HIV. I had so many things go on in my life, just like other people. But that little excerpt that I read, if you haven't read the book, when you get to it, you'll see it's another part of my healing. It's all together. It all matters. It all makes sense. I wanted to read more because I had a whole visual of that day.
Wow. That sounds like a part two coming.
It sounds like it.
Your devotionals and journals reflect a deep commitment to inner restoration. How does faith and self-reflection shape advocacy?
So I will share these. This one is In Love with Myself, Finding Inner Peace and Acceptance Journal. The journals consist of like affirmations, a reflection and question, and, just some space for you to, write whatever you're feeling. And then there is Still Waters, 30 Days of Scripture, Reflection, and Restoration. Um, and this one is basically the same, but it's more scripture driven with scriptures, affirmations, and then a reflection prompt and space for you to write. I need you to ask me that question again because I went into too much before I had a chance to answer it because I wanted to share what these books look like.
You really did answer the question. You're right on. Look, I was like, look at her. But public speaker, motivational speaker. That's
So
gonna be your next avenue.
yes.
Speaking of writing, what was the process like for you? What was your favorite thing and what was the worst?
So, oh, the process, like when I wrote The Standing on My Healing, it took me 10 years to get that book out. Not just because I wrote it by hand, but y'all, it was hard. It
Mhm.
was hard. And I say that because the purpose of writing the book wasn't to make money. For y'all that don't know, you don't make no money writing no books. You got to write a whole lot of books, and they got to be very detailed and very informative to a way to people to like really buy. So this right here, the purpose of this was for my healing. So when I started writing, and it was what I thought was I was just going to tell my story about how I got diagnosed and be done with it. But every time I got to the part, y'all, where I confronted my ex-husband and he said to me, "Yeah, I knew, so what you going to do?" The rage. And every time I would get to that part of writing, I couldn't write. So then I would stop. And when I try to pick it up again, God would say, "Start from the beginning. Start from the beginning." I'm like, "Start from the beginning? I got to tell the story all over again." But I kept hearing, "Start from the beginning, start from the beginning." What I understood in that was start from the beginning of my life, because I needed to heal from those things when I first experienced trauma. I was 3 years old when I first experienced trauma. So this is why my story starts that early, and then it goes until right before my big brother passed away, which was in 2015. So the story is from the 70s all the way up, and the process Like I said in the beginning, was hard. But when I listened to what God told me to do, and I would go out, buy water, and I would just write by hand, I don't know, y'all, it was like peeling back the onion.
Mhm.
It just felt so good. And then I realized, Alicia, you don't have to reinvent the wheel because you like to write in diaries. So I had a lot of diaries, y'all. So the beginning of some of this stuff is really my what I wrote in my diary. So I just took that and put it into the book, into the manuscript, and I just edited where I needed to. But as I kept getting through each chapter, oh man, it was so freeing. It was like, all right, so women that like to wear stilettos and you don't wear them and your feet hurt, and them jokers is barking all day, and you take them shoes off and you get that relief and stretch those toes. That's how I felt every time I got through a chapter. It just caused me to get closer and closer to the freedom that I needed to be a better me.
We have some great comments in the chat. Bonita says, "Thank you, Alicia, for sharing yourself and your story with us and others. It's so important for us to keep showing up in these spaces." Stacy also says, "You are so inspiring." And we also have some happy birthday messages for you.
Thank you.
So many people living with HIV struggle with self worth. What would you say to someone who is still learning how to love themselves fully?
A lot of us say this, and it's not cliche, y'all. It's important. You're not by yourself. You are not alone. And somebody might be saying, well, y'all say that all the time because hell is important. Because even though I knew I was not the only person diagnosed, I felt like I was in a box with no windows and no doors by myself with no light, and somebody pried it open and reached in and helped me get up out of there. They let me know I wasn't alone. So I would definitely let them know you are not alone. This diagnosis is not you. It's something that happened. It's just like if somebody if go to the doctor and the doctor is like, "Oh, well, you're anemic." You just have anemia, but it doesn't change who you are. You still look beautiful. You still walk on your two legs. It's like any other diagnosis. And I know HIV comes from strong stigma. But when you see beautiful people like me, I know I'm making a joke, but again, I can because I'm so happy with my life now. But those who I have encountered who have either one been newly diagnosed or have been diagnosed longer than I have and have not told anybody, I would let them know I'm there. And I wouldn't use just lip service, y'all. I didn't care how busy I was, I would really be there. Meaning that if I have shared my phone number, my email, or let you know when you need me, I'm there, and you call and it's like, hey, I need to talk. Hey, can we go out to lunch? Can we just meet up somewhere? Or there were people who called and they were crying and they were going through, and I could relate because I was there. So I would let them know, like, I love you. I'm here for you. How about we schedule time to get together? And it didn't matter what I was doing. And this was in the beginning of my advocacy now, and I can't do this now. But I would take off work. And some people didn't know I would take off work. But I knew what it felt like to be alone. And I also had people that I knew who got diagnosed after me and they committed suicide. And I felt so bad because I was like, I didn't have the opportunity to be there for them because they got the diagnosis and they immediately took action. So I would definitely stand on you are not by yourself. There are a slew of people who support you, who understand. Stories may be different, but at the end of the day, it's still some trauma. And whatever I'm not able to assist you with, we're like a tree. There are branches and leaves on that tree, and there's somebody that can be there for you, maybe a little bit more than I can. But you are not by yourself, and you do not have to suffer in silence. We won't let you.
Right. When you think about your legacy, what do you hope people say about the impact of Alicia Diggs, both in advocacy and humanity?
Not just, oh, she was so strong. We all strong. We are all strong. But the thing is, she was selfless.
Mm.
It's hard to talk positive about yourself, but I'm gonna try. I'm gonna make an attempt to do this. But really, Alicia was selfless. Like, Alicia would give you the shirt off her back. Alicia would listen and be there. That's what I want my legacy to be. There are times that Alicia didn't want to be bothered, and I knew that. But at the end of the day, Alicia was there. She was true and she was honest. And whatever Alicia said that she was going to do, she did it. And if she didn't, something was going on where she could not make that thing happen. When I think about legacy, not just for, friends or other people who may read about me or see some old video or something later on down the line. But I have grandchildren, and I said earlier I didn't think I would be a grandmom, and I have four grandchildren, and they live in different states, but they know who I am, and I get to talk to them every now and again. But I want them to see and know, man, something bad happened to grandma, but she persevered. She pressed through. She didn't even act like things were going on. She just continued to smile and support people and do whatever was needed to help uplift other people. She was a mentor to many. She was a pain in the behind at times, but she was amazing. So I do want my legacy to be one that of a humanitarian, a person who, like I mentioned earlier, put herself to the side to make sure that other people were respected, other people's rights were were in place, just to make sure that you don't leave anyone behind. That's just so important. It's so awful to feel alone and to feel like nobody wants you, to feel like nobody loves you, to to have a feeling of you're a sore for them, you're tainted. So to have the feeling of love, like I feel love, I exude love, and I want somebody else to feel that. And if it means that I can give them just a little bit, even when I'm on empty,
Mm.
I still try to give out as much as I can to make sure that someone knows that they're not by themselves and they are loved. Yeah.
I want to read these last few comments that are in the chat from Stacy. You're absolutely amazing, just the way you are. Singing in my Bruno Mars voice, I love you with my whole heart.
Mm.
Benita says, Alicia is a whole boss for real, for real. Cecilia says, lemons into lemonade. And
Mm.
Sheila wishes you a happy birthday. And before I do final thoughts, I would like to say thank you for always showing up for me.
Mm.
Thank you for accepting me, not just what you see on the outside, but for what's on the inside. Thank you for pushing me to do what I'm doing today. Thank you for just being you.
Mm.
I wouldn't be able to do what I do if it wasn't for your heart, your love, your empowerment, and your understanding.
Thank you.
Alicia's life, leadership, and love for community reminds us that healing is not just personal, it's a collective. Thank you for Alicia, thank you for standing in your truth and helping others do the same. To the listeners, may this conversation remind you that your voice matters, Your healing counts, and your lived experience is powerful. Join us on YouTube at the Quiet Storm Collective for powerful conversations, faith filled encouragement, and real stories. Until next time, y'all have a good night.